everyone. Thanks for joining me. It's another Thursday, and my LinkedIn Live is starting. I'm really excited today to have Maggie Hanna, who is in Canada, and she's joining me today. And I really appreciate that she's joining me. First of all, I'll introduce myself in case there are people who haven't ever come across my LinkedIn Lives. My name is Yekemi Otaru, and I'm one of the co-founding directors over at Ducara in Aberdeen in Scotland. We work with a lot of different companies who usually have a technical basis. So energy, IT, manufacturing, engineering type companies, and we help them with their sales and marketing strategy and with execution as well. So that's just a really quick summary. I'm an entrepreneur and I absolutely love talking about business and progress and really cool technology. So I'm going to go over to Maggie to introduce herself. Tell us, Maggie.
Hi, everybody. I'm thrilled to be here, Yakemi, and talking about energy transition and climate change. And I started out as a BSc in geology in 1981, and I've worked in mining, geology, oil and gas exploration for about 3 decades, and I gave it up when I just decided I didn't want to drill holes anymore, and take hydrocarbon out and add to the problem. So I gave it up at a time when my parents were going into their deaths, and so they needed a lot of help. And during that time, I have to keep my brain happy, or it turns on me. So, so I looked into world energy systems. What are they? What are they like today? How did they get to be this way? And where would we most like them to go? So that led me down a path of technology and innovation, scouting, and I worked for a major oil and gas oil sands company for 3 years doing high-end innovation, and then just got a real taste for hydrogen and this whole energy transition that we're going in. And as a systems thinker, it just lit me up, and I've been studying it and speaking on it, and I'm a fellow at the Energy Futures Lab in hydrogen, orphan wells, and our Energy Futures Roadshow that talks about energy transition in smaller communities around our province of Alberta. And also, I'm an associate at CSER, the Canadian Energy Systems Analysis Research Group out of the University of Calgary, and I have a Patreon page that gives people, I would say, gives people a taste, at least, of what's going on in the world in energy transition and also to address climate change. So that's my pet project, and here we are today.
I love it. I love it because your energy and your passion for what you do just shines through. I
Yeah.
absolutely love it, Maggie.
Yeah.
And you're a little bit like me, doing a lot of different things and doing them 110%. I also kind of grew up in oil and gas. I don't think maybe didn't say. So I grew up in oil and gas as well. And I basically just found that I really like the commercial side of things. I love technology. And I saw in your headline when we first met, the technology scout. I absolutely love technology because I think that technology can actually get us some of the results that we're looking for and can help us change what seem to be, the normal ways of how things have always been done. But technology can actually get us further and give us some progress. You spoke a
Well,
lot about.
I would just like to say that on one hand, we've got all the technology we need right now to actually make this transition happen in a good way. And anything else we come up with is like gravy, icing on the cake, right? And I work with small companies, to get them connected in and get them what they need with really good technologies, and yet we got everything we need today. So
What we need is not more technology, really, is what you're saying, Maggie.
well,
Is it really?
yeah.
Because you spoke a little bit about, and I was going to come to you spoke a little bit about systems thinking, and I know that's your bread and butter. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means, and maybe the
Sure.
connection with technology and the energy transformation?
Yeah. So systems thinking looks at the connections between things more than the things themselves in a way. And it's, here we are, trying to give up, hydrocarbons in this world, right? And it's a real issue. It's really hard. I mean, a barrel of oil has 4,053 human work hours in it. 4,053 in a barrel of oil. And if that's 2 hours or 2 years of 40-hour work weeks, right? In a barrel of oil. And at $15 an hour, that's $61,000. And we pay 60, $80 for that. So this is a really tough thing to do, to limit and reduce our carbon emissions. And so we're going to need a whole bunch of things that need to be connected in an intelligent way in order to supply us with the energy that we need and want and desire in order to keep our lives moving smoothly, and so that we don't actually regress into energy as available instead of energy on demand, which is what we're used to. Places in the world where energy is available, people waste a lot of life force, when the power comes on for 4 hours a day to run around and fill the bathtub up, because otherwise the pumps aren't working. So, it's a real challenge for us, and yet it's a necessary challenge that we can meet, and so we don't need more tech. What we need is more political will.
Mm-hmm. And do you think that it's more of almost like a mindset, behavioral change as a society, or is it so much deeper than that, Maggie?
I think that's the number one thing, actually, is because you know in our lives, if we just decide that we're going to do what we can not to put more CO2 and methane and greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, then life changes, right? Because the market has changed. If we decide that we're going to drive electric cars and that's it, then people, will start making them as they are today. Wider varieties of electric cars are available today, and also people will. The price will come down. There'll be used ones available, and will at least that part of the energy, CO2 emission system will be electric, and that's a good thing, But it's like we have to decide that, because oil and gas companies, if there's a market, they'll just supply the market. We're the market. We have to change our behavior, right? How we insulate our homes, how our windows are designed, how we, every home wastes about 30% of the energy that comes into it, wastes it. So, if we can cut that 30% waste out in our transmission systems, in our homes, in our industries, then we have enough energy by 2050 to not only accommodate the extra people on the planet that'll be here by then, but also lift a whole bunch of countries and people out of poverty, energy poverty. So 30% is a lot, and we waste 30%. So let's stop doing that.
No, some really scary stats there, Maggie. When you were talking about the barrel of oil and over 4,000 man hours, those are some really scary stats. But yet, the I suppose the questioner in me is thinking, when we talk about energy transformation or energy transition, as it's called, as we call it here in the North Sea, it feels like there are all these shades of gray before we, or all these steps, these granular steps before we actually get to where we're trying to get to.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that kind of roadmap currently exists where, the government or a group of people or a research body has sat down and said, right, this is where we are right now. This is how much energy that we use. This is the waste. In 2 years' time, this is what we want it to look like. In 5 years' time, this is what we want it to look like. And ultimately, this is where we want to get to by 2050. Because I agree with you that a lot of it is really hard. It's unnecessary, but I don't think anything worthwhile ever came easily. But I just wondered if we were to look at that granular kind of progress towards, where we want to get to, what would you say is the next realistic step? What would waste look like? What would mindset and society look like in the next realistic step?
That's a great question. So first, I want to make a distinction between where we want to be by 2050 and the pathways to get there, right? Because we're here. Let me get my hands in the screen. We're here, and we want to get there. And there are many pathways, to get there. There's many pathways. I can't even make my hands. It's a reflection. Anyway, so so bottom line here is that you can't take a step from where you're not, and so even if something doesn't make sense in the long term, but it's what you can do today. That's what you do today. For example, let's see. We can't start using hydrogen immediately large scale because we haven't set up the supply chain, and we haven't figured out how exactly we're going to do that. I think that there are groups in the world who have these things figured out, and the group I work with, the Caesar group out of the University of Calgary, is one of them. And if you want to see some of those pathways, you can always go. We launched the Transition Accelerator. So www.transitionaccelerator.ca, and there's a whole bunch of reports there that are absolutely gold about how to do this, and what the parameters are. And also in your country, there's the Climate Change Committee. I love those guys. They have been putting out reports for 2 decades that are just gold. They're an independent research body of really smart people. I love their stuff. So these are the folks that are mapping out the pathways to get there. And that's not just technology. That's also what are the regulations and the policies that we need to adopt. Carbon price is one of them for sure. And here in Canada, we're looking at $170 a ton by 2030. And with any luck, we'll put that into law, and it'll be like a done deal, and we'll just have to do that. And that opens the door to a lot of things that then become economic when we are trying to navigate this energy transition. Things like, carbon capture and sequestration. All of a sudden, instead of being a money pit, that becomes, a license to print money, at $170 a ton, because it costs about $60 a ton to do it, if in ideal circumstances. So, it's an awesome thing, carbon price, even though people rail against it. They don't understand that this is how we get the economics to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's so many moving parts, aren't there? So many aspects, and I think, in my experience, and it'll be good to hear what if you're listening now or later, and you've got any questions or you've got a view, please feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll try to get to every question and comment. So please feel free to put that on. But there are a lot of moving parts, and sometimes I find you speak to groups that are focusing on one aspect of it. Like the other day, I did a poll on LinkedIn around electric vehicles, and there's some strong views around, electric vehicles, and people strongly think, this is not the time. We're not ready. The infrastructure isn't there. It's not realistic, or depending on where they live, it's actually not feasible for them to use an electric car because of all the limitations around that. And then there's all the schools of thought that think, look, we have to start now. We have to start at some point. We can't wait until all the infrastructure is there and all the technology works and the prices have come down. And so there's just so many different views. And to be honest, they feel like they're all right. Like it's all looking at a different part of this picture, but it is all the same picture, right? So I just wanted to kind of touch on one of the things that came up as well around hydrogen. So that's another thing that kind of came up. People saying hydrogen powered cars are better than electric vehicles, and some other people saying hydrogen isn't the answer. And I know you have a strong view around hydrogen, Maggie. So tell us, hydrogen, is that the answer?
It is part of the answer. So my rule of thumb is that if a vehicle today runs on gasoline, it should go probably battery electric. I have a Tesla S myself, a 2013 Tesla S, right? So it's, they started rolling off the assembly line in 2012, so mine's early, and it's an awesome car. It's not only the best car I ever bought, it's the best object I ever bought. But that's because I would have been driving a gasoline car. But if you're running on diesel, then you're better off on a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. And there's really 4 reasons for that, because hydrogen does things better than battery electric, at least right now, in 4 ways. And one is long distances. A tank of 100 kilograms of hydrogen on a Class 8 freight truck can take a full load 900 kilometers. If you have, so that's the first thing. Heavy loads is another one. Another one is high duty cycle. A lot of trucking companies, let's just take freight trucks for example, they have high duty cycle. Those trucks are on the road. And sometimes they have 2 drivers that swap off. They don't have time to sit and wait and charge for 4 hours. They have skinny margins to 15% margins, 12% margins anyway. So hydrogen overcomes that. And lastly, cold temperatures. So my car at -40 loses about 40% of its range because it's got to keep use battery electricity to keep the battery in condition in its temperature range. So you don't have that issue as much although there's a battery in a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. It's small. And it can be kept in condition with very little power. But having said that, those are the four things that hydrogen does better in transportation than battery electric does. Hydrogen does better than batteries if you want to store large amounts of power for a long time, like seasonally, like from summer to winter or from year to year. Hydrogen will do that for you. And even though it's lossy, we have to make hydrogen on this planet. It doesn't occur naturally. We have to make it, and there's lots of ways to make it. But it's lossy, but and engineers say this to me all the time. You say you use so much power to make hydrogen and you lose a bunch of it and then you store it and it's fine stored. It doesn't lose power there like batteries do. But then when you turn it back into electricity again, you make a whole bunch more lossiness. The energy efficiency is crappy. And what I say to those folks is, look, electricity is to hydrogen as milk is to cheese, right? It takes a lot of energy to make cheese. It takes a lot of time to make cheese. But cheese stores for years. If you have a 5-year-old cheddar, it's awesome, right? So it stores for years. Electricity does not, and it also it has different uses than electricity, just like cheese has different uses than milk does. You wouldn't be putting milk on your pizza. It's like, why would you? Right? So the thing here is that hydrogen is a key part of this energy transition. And in my estimation, I think by 2050, if we get things right, hydrogen will be probably 25 to 35% of all our world energy use, and power, clean power will be about 30 to 50% of world energy use. We're going to have to take our nuclear reactors. Right now, they're about 11% of the power generation in the world. We got to triple that. And then take part of that nuclear power, about a third of it, make hydrogen out of it, and 2/3 of it we put clean power in the grid. So it's not like we're out of options, but we have to get after it, and a lot of the new Gen 4 nuclear is awesome. The molten salt reactors that terrestrial has and other people have that, just a couple of weeks ago, China fired up the first molten salt reactor in the world since the 60s. So we're moving forward here, but we really do need the political will and to speed things up, I'd say.
Yeah,
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 absolutely.
absolutely.
Am
Am
I
I
echoing?
echoing?
No, not to me.
Yeah, something going on with my headset. We could stop. Phew. I've got a different setup today. So I've got my screen here looking at the questions on LinkedIn, and I'm looking at you on this computer.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if I'm looking away, I'm looking at a screen.
You got the hard job. I got the easy job here.
Yeah, I try to make it very
Please
easy
pick
for
my
my
brain.
guests. I try to make it very easy for my guests. But I think with everything that is worthwhile accomplishing, it's step by step, and it's, how do they say, how do you eat the elephant? Bit by bit. Yeah, a bite at a time. And I think that's it. When you think about the whole task, you think about the entire transition, you think about the entire transformation, it just feels like there's a lot to do. And there is a lot to do. But with expertise, with research, with the mindset, with the will, with the support of government, society, businesses, I think we can definitely get there. And Richard, who I worked with during my time at GE, he's put through a really interesting comment, and I thought it would be good to share it on the screen. So Richard has said many different routes and many different routes taken and adopted by governments around the world. There is no one size fits all. Lots of opportunities for influencers to get close to those in power to lobby for good decisions. In batteries, we need a step change in technology with lower environmental impact.
Yeah, no, Richard, you nailed it. Nailed it. So, so two things. One is that every region of the world, and I don't mean country so much as region, because regions have resource endowments, right? They have their own way of accessing clean power some way or another. Either they're endowed with solar like North Africa, or they're endowed with wind like Northern Europe, or they've got can put nuclear plants in, and or they have natural gas that they can make hydrogen out of, and the right rocks to sequester the CO2 in it. And other countries don't have that, don't have the right rocks to sequester CO2. And so we're going to, we'll be setting up a whole marketplace with shipping, and we need new pipelines. Hydrogen pipelines need to be a little different. They need to be nickel steel or lined existing pipelines. So all of these things together, there's different sets of solutions for different areas in the world, but to have, it's like paint. You have all of these colors you can choose from to make this painting, and it's our job to make sure that all those colors are available to all the regions of the world, so they can make their own painting of what this is going to look like to serve their citizens. So that's one thing, because there really is no one size fits all. The needs different, etc. Right? But the other thing here is there are. Let me see this question again. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh well.
It'll come to you. It'll come to
Yeah,
you.
it'll come to
He talks about the step change in technology.
I got it back. Yeah. I got it back. Sorry. Richard says, batteries needs lower impact. Well, there's things that are happening on that front. And some new technologies, the batteries themselves, Tesla's working on a 1,000,000-mile battery. And they're not saying how exactly, but my guess is they're going to have a way to split lithium-6 from lithium-7, because when those two are together in a battery, they make bridges between the anode and the cathode that shorts out the battery. And if you can split those apart and just use lithium-7, say, which is 92% of all lithium, then you don't get those bridges, and those batteries can last way, way, way longer. And so that's one thing. That's one thing. But there's and they don't need so much cobalt and things. Second thing is when it comes to circular economy for batteries, my favorite tech that's coming, it already exists, is a plasmic arc, super plasmic arc. And there's one in Arkansas today. And they actually take ash from coal plants and extract the vanadium out to make vanadium steel. But they can extract every element you want. So this is a way to, it takes a lot of power to do this, but it's a way to heat up the metals, let's say cell phones and computers and battery systems all in there, heat up those metals to 30,000 C, which breaks every bond in the whole kit and caboodle. And then they rotate that so that the heavies, you can take them out one element at a time. And that gives you pure copper and pure cobalt and pure lithium that you can reuse again and recombine again in without having to mine the earth for it. So this is coming. They exist in the world, and I think they're going to multiply. I tried to get one in Alberta because up in oil sands we have this awesome ash pond that is 3.5 to 5%, vanadium. And that's an ore body right there. So, yeah.
So I think with Richard's question, what we've shown is that there's a lot of different developments going on, probably in pockets around the globe, and really getting to understand what all those are. Because I'm sure that there is a challenge in one part of the world that they're trying to solve, but that's being solved in another part of the world already.
Right.
And it's just that knowledge exchange and that knowledge transfer is always really tricky with something that is new, something that is novel. You just have this reinvention of the wheel where everyone's trying to solve the same problem that's already been solved. But that sounds fascinating, some of the progress that's already been made on that front. Thank you for that question, Richard. Really good to see you. It won't be complete if we don't speak about climate change.
Yes,
Maggie.
Yes.
We've got COP26 happening in Glasgow shortly, and I think really understanding, and just want to hear your view around what you believe the priorities are for government, for businesses, for society, and individuals when it comes to climate change. What is the truth, and what are some of the myths that maybe we believe that are actually not accurate? Maggie, what are your thoughts?
Sure. So climate change is a real deal. And despite what anybody wants to say, I'm a geologist, so I can look back in time and see the changes in the climate, but none of them have been as fast as this one. So the way I explain it is it's like you're in bed and you have a blanket on. It's like the earth has this blanket of gases around it. It's like a blanket. And the amount of CO2 we naturally have in the atmosphere makes for about a 30 degrees C increase in the temperature of the planet, just normally, right? And as we add CO2 to that atmosphere, it's like your grandma sneaking in at night and putting a big down comforter over you, right? You're going to wake up sweating. And that's what we're doing. We're putting CO2 into the atmosphere, which, and it's powerful. People say, oh, gee, it's just a couple of ppm, a couple of hundred ppm, but it's the down comforter that goes over you at night and it just cooks you when you're sleeping. And so they say, oh, gee, it's just, a couple of degrees. I wouldn't mind a couple more degrees around here, especially in the winter. And that's not it at all, right? Because that's weather. And we're talking about climate. And climate is the average of 20, 30 years of weather data. And as we heat things up, right now, we get more water in the atmosphere. The jet stream has got big wows in it now that it never used to have. Those wows we call them heat domes, where the air from the equator heads in our hemisphere heads north and just stays for a long time. It doesn't move through like it used to. We get cold domes as well, and flooding because there's more water in the atmosphere, so the flooding goes up. Like, this is a full meal deal here. We're in trouble, and we have to do what we can about this. So that's how I look at climate change. And as far as COP26 and all of the governments in the world getting together, I think that's a really good thing. I also think it's a good thing, as you said, Yakemi, is having people from different parts of the world who have technology systems, ways of doing things, sharing them with each other. I spend 2 hours every morning, even on the weekends, scanning the world horizon for the new things that are happening in the world that are just, so heartening, and that people should know about, because otherwise you get this. I've got an echo now too. So otherwise you get this whole, especially with our youth, with climate anxiety and depression and despair. All they ever hear is things are going to hell in a handbasket, right? That's all they ever hear on their media channels. But there's so much going on in the world, and I collect those every day and put them into this Patreon channel, and also into the university, so people in the university know what's going on in the world. So that's what I do to address these things. It's critical, as you say, it's critically important that that governments align their policies so that markets can follow in a predictable, healthy way. If you don't have policies and regulations that you can be relied on, the market can't take the risks, right? So even here in Canada, we say, okay, we're going to be $170 CO2 by 2030, and we're having an election now, and one of the other parties says we're going to scrap all that, and so markets and companies have nothing to actually design for, and it's a problem. That's a problem. We've got to put some of this stuff into law so it can't be changed.
What you're saying actually dovetails really nicely with this comment. Climate change is a reality which we all have to face, and cooperation of science, technologies, and economies and governments are required to save the planet. No more politics of fighting and competing with each other. All world is one, and in this fighting of climate change.
Yeah, thank you, Shailendra. That's well put. And I would say, politics is the number one problem in that phrase, right? Yeah. And part of that issue, in my mind, right, is that we have people who are career politicians, but their job is up for grabs every 4 years or so. And so as soon as they get in, they start, putting down the other guys and preparing for their next 4 years. And rather than putting the highest interest of the whole, just a nano smidge higher than their own highest interest, because they don't recognize that that's when their own highest interest is served the most, right? Is when they serve the highest interest of the whole who elects them. So, all of this infighting and scrapping and personal attacks and it's just
we've had so much of that, Maggie, globally over the last, I can't remember how many years now, 5, 6 years of just that kind of infighting. So thank you so much. That comment was really, really useful. I want to talk about the future now. I can't believe we're 35 minutes in. Thank you for everyone who participated. Really quickly. We then look ahead to the future of energy. So what's that vision of the future?
Sure.
from your perspective.
Sure. So if we get this right, my sense of it is a combination of clean grid systems that are going to have to expand by 2 to 2.5 times what they are now. The transmission, we're going to have to get into high voltage direct current lines, linking longer distances, so that we can support each other when one of these loops of the atmosphere of the jet stream causes superheat in Spain. We can send them power to actually cool. So we need high voltage direct current lines, and lots of them. We're also going to need more decentralized energy in the grid. So different pockets of decentralized energy where this group makes their own energy, but they're connected to the grid, so that they have the grid backup if they need it, but they also back up the grid as well. They can be drawn on when the grid needs it. Having cars, for example, that are connected to the grid to help support the grid is a good idea, as long as you get paid for it. Like, I've got this awesome car and I protect my battery religiously, and I would do that if now and then, because the charge and discharge cycles is what wears the battery out. So I would do that now and then. I got paid for it. I would do that. And so that's the grid. So the grid has to expand 2 to 2.5 times. We have to put more nuclear onto the grid, about 3 times what we've got now, maybe more. We have to, so that's the electricity. And heating, home heating has to go electric, and cooling. So heat pumps are way more effective and efficient than natural, than say using hydrogen for heating. I don't think hydrogen is a good, different places are different, but in general, I would say hydrogen is not good for home heating or space heating or water heating. It should be saved for things like heavy industry, glass making and steel making and cement and those kinds of things, but also for transportation. So trains, buses, shipping to some degree. I think a lot of the shipping is going to go ammonia, because there isn't enough room on a major container ship for even liquid hydrogen. You can't get across the ocean on it. Liquid hydrogen only has 72 kilograms of hydrogen per cubic meter, but ammonia's got 122. And there's also new ways of storing hydrogen on a ship with sodium borohydride, which is a solid. And you can mix water with it and take the hydrogen off it. So that's 126 kilograms per cubic meter. So these solutions are in the works as we speak. So I think ammonia, green and blue ammonia is going to be key. Japan is already saying, bring us your hydrogen, bring us your ammonia. So is South Korea, so is California and Germany and places. So there's going to be a big market that we have to set up for hydrogen. We have to build out hydrogen fuel stations and supply chains. That's going to be key. And it's sticky, right? Because you got this chicken and an egg thing with hydrogen. And if I was going to put a hydrogen fuel station in and build one, why would I? There's no hydrogen cars to buy from me. And if I was going to buy a Mirai, which is an awesome car, why would I? There's no station for me to fuel at. So things like California's 45Q legislation is brilliant. That says, if you build a fuel station, we're going to pay you a high level of carbon credit, so high that even if nobody buys a kilogram of hydrogen from you, just because you have the capacity to deliver it, we'll pay you on your capacity, and you'll be able to get your investment back in 5 years. And if you start, you put your station in and people start buying cars around you and running their trucks off your hydrogen, we'll still pay you a hydrogen carbon credit, but it'll be less because you're making money now. So that's brilliant, right? That's a way to get past this chicken and egg problem that we have. So we need more of that and also we need government to ante up our tax dollars, actually, in the form of tax credits to companies. Let's say an oil company decides, I'm going to put in a hydrogen plant and the pipeline infrastructure to take it to the coast. And so, and we'll put a port in there and we're going to head off with hydrogen into the market. They need support to take that risk because the markets aren't quite formed yet, right? So, so they need there's all different ways, interest-free loans, straight grants, tax credits, all of those things are vehicles for government to support this transition and to support the companies that want to stay in business and support this too.
There's a lot there, isn't there, Maggie? There's a lot that could be done, and there's a lot to look forward to as well. There is a lot to look forward to, and I'm excited about the future. I've been writing a list of some of your kind of analogies, and they're going to stick with me. And so, just to round up for everyone that's been listening, thank you so much. I'm going to remember cheese. Okay, I'm going to remember cheese and milk, and
the grandma's blanket.
I'm going to remember the grandma's blanket, and I'm going to remember paint as well. And it just sums up nicely the whole discussion around the energy transformation, the role of hydrogen, what it's good for and what it's not good for, and our mindset as well, what we need to do with our mindset. I think that's where it all starts, and you agreed as we were speaking that it really all starts from the mindset, because if the mindset isn't there, then everything just feels hard and impossible, and we just grumble and we don't actually move forward. Thank you so much, Maggie, for joining me. I've really enjoyed our discussion. It has been indeed. And thank you everyone for watching me. So I've been Yeke Miotara. I'm based in Aberdeen, Scotland. I'm going to be doing more of this LinkedIn Lives on Thursdays. So if there's a topic that you want me to cover, if there's a subject matter expert out there that you would like me to get in touch with and get on LinkedIn Live, feel free to send me a private message. I'm sure Maggie will be happy to hear from you. If you've got further questions, you want to know more about what she does, please do go ahead and send her a message. Thank you, everyone. Bye now. Thanks, Maggie.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Can't find my mouse now. There we go. Found it.